welcome. These will be my thoughts on X-Men 97, Season 2, Episode 7, Strangeland Savage Heart. The episode is rated TV-14, so this video there will be spoilers for the show leading up to and including this episode, and of course the original animated 90s X-Men, X-Men the Animated Series, and another episode that I absolutely love. So let's dive right in. I appreciate seeing Graydon complete his transformation into the show's Donald Trump, basically. The entire continuity's Trump, really. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't exactly say no to... They don't have to, like, chain him up, but him being put on trial for... I mean, it's a long list by now. Or, well, he's been on trial. More people thinking that it's bad enough that he's guilty of so many felonies. Those are not my words. That is the judgment of an actual, well, judge. So, anyway, I think that, I mean, I'm not saying I don't believe it. I'm saying it might carry more weight that way. Yeah. And I also just really love the concept here. Yeah. I'll cover it over the course of the video. Anyway, I guess I'll also just very briefly note, so apparently some people did not like how much episode 6 was about Polaris. I mean, I'm biased because she's one of my favorite characters that I met primarily on The Gifted, the live action show, I mean. I don't know. I thought she was great, and the episode was, and personally I thought there was enough of her in this episode that it felt like the right choice to censor the episode on her. Anyway, that does bring us to so we do briefly see the the heroism of Ileana, which is awesome. And we have we go from there to and we see Colossus witness her death at the well, not the hands, eyes, I guess, of the kaiju sentinel. And then we go to Graydon. I gotta call him Graydon, since, I mean, technically Sabretooth is also Graydon, but him we usually call Sabretooth. But yeah, Graydon, that was a good choice of, there's the thing about, at first I couldn't see how, Graydon Creed was your son, but now I can't unsee it. But yeah, let's see, yeah. I mean, it feels like a Trump rally. I don't think that's really, I don't think there's going to be that much debate over whether or not, because it's right there, all over it. And then he, the place is attacked by Exodus was the leader. Acolytes. It's attacked by the Acolytes, presumably demanding a second season to what I would argue is at least slightly underrated of a Star Wars show. And I kind of love the way that so as we, the audience, are sitting watching Graydon spew this hatred, like we're thinking, I mean, I guess I'll speak only for myself, but I was sitting there thinking, this, utter, trying not to curse because I put that limitation on myself because he's 14 and up, but just like, he's just the absolute worst, like, imagine looking at, like Genosha, oh, that was just like a consequence, like, holy crap. But then when the Acolytes attack, it's like, I mean, this is kind of the thing he was talking about. They are making his point. And at the same time, it's also just an interesting, like, even before I knew there was going to be a trial, it's an interesting setup. Because, like, as soon as we see someone, like, kidnapped and threatened with execution, like, I don't know. Again, speaking only for myself, I'm like, I'm not really okay with this. This is not what the good guys do. But feeling that way for someone that I have loved to hate for years, like I watched the show back when, well, let's see, it was when it re-aired like 25 years ago after the first of the movies. I did not watch it in the 90s. I don't think, or no, I don't remember, but I definitely remember watching as much of it as I at all could. Yeah, quarter century ago. Anyway, makes me feel old. And never forgot his character. So yeah, very very nicely done. And yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna pretend like there's zero catharsis to the idea of, like, I didn't want him dead, to be clear, and certainly in real life I wouldn't. But the idea of him, it's like this taste of his own medicine kind of thing, because usually he's the one scaring mutants, not the other way around. And I suppose that pretty much, yeah, as usual, fantastic action. And that does bring us, right, I guess I'll say, so I haven't watched it for this episode, much less there's at least one more episode that has already been commented on by them. But if you haven't already, I do recommend, I should be able to remember this. Definitely my wrist or two sword right now to look it up. Fantastic Frankie, Council of Geeks, or is it Break Room of Geeks? One of the two. And Nando, I want to say it's the Nando Cut, not Nando V Movies, but those three have done really solid videos on some of the episodes of this season so far. Anyway, yeah, and what an entrance. Like, say what you will about Exodus, he appreciates, drama. And that is when we get the X-Men, or I guess I should call them X-Corps, you know, talking about oh right, and the demands were also really great. So yeah, like X Factor were supposed to release all their prisoners, and we recognize they haven't really been on this iteration that much, these two seasons so far, but they were fairly prominent in the original, in TOS, XMEN, Avalanche, and Pyro. Smiling. And let's see, I think that is, and also just the idea that, oh no, no, this is what Magneto would do. And Charles points out, this is really gross. Like they're using his name to justify this. And that is, of course, because that's, the ending of the original show. There was an episode where Magneto was willing to give up his crusade in order to, even as it was gaining steam, to save Charles. And now, this is sort of picking up, because there's been even more events. It's among them the genocide in Genosha. So yeah, really, really, yeah. And this is, again, this is a thing that actually happens sometimes in the real world. You know, as I sometimes talk about in my videos, sometimes, a leader of a movement will die, and it's not necessarily that they were like perfect, but someone says, oh, this is what they would want to do, so we're going to do this, and you just do what I say because I want what that person wants. And they're able to get a lot of support through that. And sometimes really, really horrible things happen. We should always really take a step back and be like, is this what that person would want? And even if it is, like, are we sure we want to do it? Like, is this too extreme, basically? Like, it's understandable that they're grieving him. He obviously meant quite a lot. He was imperfect, but, he wasn't nobody. And, yeah, when we human beings grieve, we sometimes make mistakes. I think that does bring us to the, yeah, so, Cooper, I want to say is her name, is, telling Charles. Oh, wait, sorry. We also have the bit with the conversation about the, yeah, you know, the clips at the start, reminded us of the stuff with the family situation. But we also have a little bit of conversation between the siblings about, um, yeah, and that was quite good, very nicely done. And yeah, so she's Cooper is like, tell me you're not already sending the X-Men, you know, to deal with this. And Charles is like, so I'm not sending the X-Men out to do this. I mean, technically they're called X-Corps now. By the way, love the uniforms. I forget if they're comic accurate. It's been so long since I read them, but yeah, in general, the acolytes also look amazing. Like, holy crap, Colossus. I understand. I'm glad you're no longer an acolyte. I am not opposed to the idea of you using that cape just consistently from now on, because you are rocking it. And I feel like that does bring us to the flight towards it. Yeah, and the yeah, really, really compelling that it's shot down. Like, they don't even try to communicate with them. As soon as they pick them up, it's like, oh, hey, these are my friends. Yeah, that's you could have like radioed them or something, just to, okay, does anybody on this jet have some sort of friendship with anyone who's an acolyte, just to check, but that's how extreme they are. They shoot first and ask questions. Well, never really, because they were going to blow this entire thing up. And they, like, yeah, they it is kind of surreal that they survived, come to think of it. I at first I was expecting everyone to parachute out, but then of course the episode played out very differently. But I don't know, they must have unbelievable airbag technology on the X-Jet. And let's see. Yeah, the bit with, so they realize their powers are not working, and they're like, well, I guess the Mr. Sinister Tower that zaps our powers is back up, and that makes perfect sense, because like between these, aerial defenses and the tower turning off mutant powers, yeah, like the acolytes are essentially like they really would have been no way to attack them. Like this appeal was the only tactic that had any chance whatsoever. And I think that does bring us to the yeah. So I like the back and forth. I'm really digging their relationship. It is kind of like, it's not like constantly hostile, but they're also not like founder of each other's fan club. Like Polaris and Bishop, they're strong personalities, and sometimes those can kind of clash because yeah, it's one of those things of like, this isn't big enough for the two of us. And yeah, he manages to grab a parachute, but then it flies out of his hand. And then Polaris just jumps after, even though she can't fly anymore. Like, holy crap. And, he's just said, maybe you're going to make a scene. I may have read your file too. Yeah, just absolutely amazing. And yeah, the thing with like, here we go. The Doomsayer, and yeah, that was incredibly cool. Like, I was already loving that we're having an action scene on a fast-moving vehicle, but they jump out of it and they're trying to grab the parachute, and it activates and they just barely land. It's just, yeah. And let's see. I don't know if, are they doing a thing of like the two of them will end up in a relationship together, because I wouldn't rule that out based on how some of this plays. The fact that they land on each other specifically rather than just next to each other. I don't know. And it is also like if she just hated his guts 100%, she could have let him die. Like there was very very significant risk of her own death with that maneuver. And that does bring us to, and also, yeah, the ticking time bomb of, if they don't stop this tower, he's going to implode because the energy, yeah, very, very clever. And yeah, and so they set about walking, or getting back to the, I love the bit with like, so do you have any good ideas? Good? No, but fun. Or quiet ideas maybe, yeah, but yeah, and that was also, yeah, incredible. Loved seeing them fly around and attacking, flying around on, I want to say, are those pterodactyls? There's, just amazing. Also really appreciate that they appreciated, maybe don't go overboard with the dinosaurs this time, because like if you look, I very recently rewatched the original anime show, and it's like you really get your money's worth of dinosaurs in that one. So if this one also, like, let's do something else. It's great to have Savage Land back, but let's do something that's, you know, different from the so yeah, and there was no Sinister, there was no Sauron, which I guess means there's just no one there who'd rather, who is not that interested in curing cancer, but does want to turn people into dinosaurs. And I think that, yeah, even Kazar wasn't, like, genuinely, I don't think there was even one character here that, like, quote unquote, originated from the Savage Lands. That, yeah. Anyway, moving on. I think that we'd seen in the Savage Lands in the original animated show. I believe that does get us nicely to the bit with let's see. Yeah, I think that that covers the two of them nicely. So I'm going to talk about the rest of them. And yeah, I appreciate that certainly the you know, it's very in character for Rogue to react the way she does. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm kind of with Nightcrawler. Let's not go ahead and threat, because she's about, she's like saying, you don't actually expect it. Like, okay, we don't have powers, but we're still gonna fight. Maybe there's a more diplomatic way to do this, And the let's see, I think I really appreciated, excuse me, the bit where they make it clear, no, 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 we still have our powers. It's just you who don't, And I mean, if you're open enough to it, maybe you will eventually get your powers back here. And yeah, they see Graydon, and Exodus making another grand entrance. Is talking about like the elf. It's bring your friends to Dungeon Day. Sure to check the calendar. But he's not really super open to something, so yeah, Nightcrawler's like, okay, how about a trial? Yes, humans gave Graydon a trial, and he has not been punished, but we could hold a trial for him. You can't just execute someone without a trial. And Colossus will be the judge. Fantastic. Just, yeah, absolutely love it. Because that really is the thing. He is right in the middle. Obviously, he hates Graydon and has a lot of faith in Exodus and the other acolytes. But he did used to be an X-Man. As soon as he recognizes them, he's like, oh, these are my friends, He's not like, you should not have come here. He's just like, hey, you guys and gal. And let's see. Yeah, I thought I cannot put into words in any language that I currently speak how much I loved the bit where, so yeah, Nightcrawler, yeah, makes his points to Exodus, still in the cell, and then Exodus turns to look at Graydon, and the grin on Graydon's face, because, like, yeah, it is like, well, are you really saying that you don't think you can make a strong case that Graydon deserves it, and yet you want him dead? That seems kind of messed up, dude, so just fantastic. And let's see. Yeah, I like the bit where Graydon finished the prayer, or the Bible quote. I'm fairly confident it is, at least, or, Christian quote, whatever. And he talks about, I already know that stuff. And it's, yeah, like, that's the thing that sometimes conservative Christians don't think about. There's other Christians who disagree vehemently with you, so you can't really claim to speak for Christ, because there's other interpretations, ones that are, like, 100% diametrically opposed to yours. You can only say that it's your own interpretation, and so often conservative Christians don't admit that because they know that it would not sound as authoritative. And yeah, the trial itself, fantastic. The arguments, I really did appreciate Exodus. Everything he said was technically, he when he lays out the what are they called? The individual, the virus that only killed mutants. The I think, yeah, the Friends of Humanity must have been mentioned. The various things that yeah, like, we can understand why, and it is this thing, like, I mean, essentially near the end, Nightcrawler basically spells it out, which, fair enough, if it's for, 14 and up, but he points out, is this mercy or is the opposite mercy? And does even someone who is this willing and capable of such evil, does even that person deserve that? And I would say, we all deserve to be heard. Not everybody is going to, you know, compel a jury, for example, to side in favor of, this person not being, for example, executed. But I do think, we cannot get away from, like, trials and such. Like, there's definitely some things that need to be improved about them, but we got to give people, yeah. Um, it's a major element of dictatorships to punish without a trial, including with execution. Anyway, yeah, I absolutely adored the defense, because it is so eloquent, so well delivered, and extremely true to life. Like, if you meet bigots and you talk to them, and I'm not saying everybody should, because it can be a lot. You gotta scrub your brain afterwards. But so many of them, like, if you apply the right pressure, eventually it will become clear, oh, it's like this one or two, like, there's some specific, individual people and or events, like a lot of misogynists, for example, it's that they didn't like that their mother made them feel small, or maybe their sister got away with something that, and yeah, and of course, parental. I mean, with Graydon, it's both abandonment and abuse. Mystique abandoned him, and Sabretooth abused him, and then eventually abandoned him. And yeah, like that, there are people who struggle for a long time to, become an ethical person after that. And I hope that this kind of thing can influence potential parents, and also just, like, I'm not saying it's easy. And I'm not saying at all that we should let them like get away with, like when bigots do awful things, they should be held accountable for sure, but it is important to understand how they became that way, what keeps them that way. That's how we solve problems, by understanding. Doesn't mean that not everybody gets forgiven, and some people, it is very, very difficult to reach. But you know there are a lot of bigots out there, and we're going to have to find some way to all coexist. And to be clear, I'm not saying, I have not come across personally, at least, maybe they're out there. I haven't encountered every online leftist, uh, in person, on the other hand. No, obviously. But personally, I haven't really encountered very many who said, oh, this person is just, there's no way that we could ever possibly, you know, yeah, or they just deserve the absolute worst. That kind of thing. I don't know. I'm just, sometimes conservatives come across my videos, and I want to make it clear that's my stance and that of quite a few other leftists, far leftists. I think that does bring us to the let's see. Right, and if I understand correctly, it is accurate to the comic that this is how, this is Graydon's experience. And let's see. I believe that does. But yeah, and so Colossus is about to deliver the verdict, and Exodus is enraged. And yeah, it's just fantastic. And then, the tower is blown up, and all of them are able to, you know, yeah, the X Corps are able to fight. I really appreciated all that they did with the teleporter duel, because it's the kind of thing of like, okay, if you're not careful enough, that could end up super tedious. Because like, yeah, one of them teleports, for example, behind the other, and then the other teleports behind them, and that sort of thing. You can just have them spam that over and over, and yeah, it would just get so dull. But instead, they make sure there's just enough, like it's sufficiently dynamic, and both of them use teleportation really well, to quite impressive effect. And yeah, just absolutely awesome. And it was also it's the kind of thing of like, yeah, I mean, I don't know who else would even be able to stand a chance against Exodus other than Nightcrawler. Like, it's very clear, like the others, he's just that freaking powerful and fast, and so many powers all rolled into just one character. And I am gonna miss him. It's too bad they kill him here, but it also really sends a message. And let's see, I love the back-to-back bit. Colossus and Bishop standing back-to-back, helping each other. And right, it was also great that he had a painting of Ileana, which I believe he does draw. I'm not sure I remember him painting in other versions, but I remember him drawing in at least some other adaptation. So I can imagine that's from the comic. It's been so long since I read them, I do not quite remember. Anyway, I think but yeah, the entire climax is just fantastic. And let's see. Yeah, also I'll return to this part, but I'll briefly talk about the thing with, afterwards. There was the thing about, so we just found Graydon all by himself in snow, but alive. That was the agreement. I mean, he's not wrong. He didn't say, oh, we'll it's all velvet gloves. And I I mean, the ending there, did Gambit Yeah, I mean yeah, I'm really looking forward to more. I think it's really working for them, this thing of like, because this was another episode that didn't really further the apocalypse thing all that much, but there's a few episodes left. I can imagine at least one of the remaining ones will, maybe it is just the finale of the season, or maybe also the episode right before it, but you know, at least one episode will focus very much on that arc, I believe. Haven't watched, but that would be my theory. And let's see, but yeah, the it's the fact that yeah, so Graydon, and we see it, we see the gun knocked out, and we see him head towards it, and then suddenly there's a gunshot, and yeah, like once again, I'm sitting there like, holy crap, he actually, yeah, and then what have you done? What I've always done, survive. That's yeah, he genuinely, because like now he's making their point, or yeah, by shooting Exodus, he made Exodus's point. This is exactly what Exodus said would happen. I mean, it's really the tiniest version of it. Like he would yeah, and yeah, he threatens Nightcrawler, and Nightcrawler teleports him away and does threaten him, and then decides, this is, I will not carry out judgment of you because I am not God. You may not be a mutant, but you are definitely your parents' son. Oof. I mean, I think it's probably a good thing that he is, that Nightcrawler left him where he was. How far did he teleport again? Wasn't it usually just as far as he can see? Did they skip ahead of him teleporting piecemeal to, because I don't remember there being snow in the Savage Land. Oh wait, what? No, I'm fairly confident that there was. I'm not entirely sure, but certainly it was. I don't know. It did not seem like it was within like eye sight. Yeah, they maybe he borrowed Blink's powers briefly, but yeah, really, really powerful. That entire scene, and then yeah, saying you are your parents' son. Yeah, it's probably good that Nightcrawler left him where he did, because he's gonna need a lot of ice to deal with that burn.